gentlemen. Welcome to the afternoon CISA seminar presentations. We can welcome now Mr. Ray Frangie. Ray's a cybersecurity expert. He's earned some various cybersecurity qualifications. I've worked with Ray before, and he combines a very sound academic appreciation of the cybersecurity propeller head discipline with an actual practical orientation to apply it in the real world. So I think you'll find some very great value out of Ray's presentation, given that apparently cybersecurity risk is about 75% of all risks these days. So on that note, over to Mr. Ray Frangie.
Thanks, Mike, and good afternoon, everybody. As Mike mentioned, my name is Ray Frangie, and I've worked with Mike for a couple of years now, and yes, propeller head is it's an interesting description, so thank you, Mike, for that one. Okay, as with everything in cybersecurity, we like to classify things. So this presentation is classified until we want. So there is no restrictions, and these presentation slides can be happily distributed between yourselves and the or any members of your association. So what we'll do today is we'll touch on what cybersecurity is. We hear what cybersecurity, or we hear the term cybersecurity. We'll touch on that. We'll touch on Internet of Things, or as I like to call them, Internet of Threats. That's what I prefer to call them. Touch on a bit of hygiene and protecting some smart buildings, and we'll have a look. Is it really that bad out there? And we'll go into Q&A. So, what is cybersecurity? We hear the term. You ask people don't know how to answer it properly. And if you look at an official term, an official standard, it says, well, cybersecurity is the ability to protect or defend the use of cyberspace from cyber attacks. Well, if you look at that definition, it doesn't really tell you much. What's cyberspace? What's cyber attacks? We're looking for a definition of cybersecurity. That doesn't really tell me what it is. So the definition that I prefer to use is the state of being protected against the criminal or unauthorized use of electronic data or the measures taken to achieve this. That's what I prefer to use when someone asks me about cybersecurity. However, I'm going to throw another spanner in the works. Besides cybersecurity, we have information security. Now, some people will tell you they're the same thing. Far from it. They are not the same thing, however, they work together, and you will see that shortly. So, besides cybersecurity, as I said, we've got information security, and that's defined as the protection of information and information systems from unauthorized access, use, disclosure, disruption, modification, or destruction in order to provide confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So, when we talk about information security, we look at what they call the CIA triad. It's not the Central Intelligence Agency, it's confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Now, we see a lot of people moving towards the cloud as an example. So if we look at this, and apologies, people can't actually see the laser pointer, but I'm pointing towards availability. A lot of people moving to the cloud are focusing on availability. Let's make things more available. But by moving towards availability a lot of these people are sacrificing confidentiality and integrity. So to get a good balance of security, we need to bring that ball per se, back into the middle. So let's have a good balance of confidentiality, a balance of integrity, and a balance of availability. And when we talk about the cloud, well, there's no such thing as the cloud. It's just somebody else's computer. So make sure that you are aware you are giving your data to someone else's computer. So to summarize that, you will see here that cybersecurity is one branch and information security is another. But they work together to protect digital information, which is what it is in a cyber and information security space. We need to protect digital information. If you think that the internet has changed your life, think again. The Internet of Things is about to change it all over again. It's a very good saying, because when we look at the Internet of Things, we see it everywhere. Now, what is the Internet of Things? Well, I mean, it could be wearables, it could be the beloved coffee machine in your kitchen. And yes, they have hacked coffee machines and they've had to spread malware onto your corporate networks. That's done before. And it could be components, it could be the jet engine of an airplane, or all the technology that you find in your cars these days. These are all IoT. So simply put, the Internet of Things is the concept of basically connecting any device with an on-off switch to the Internet and all each other. So that includes people. Internet of Things also includes people. So think of the IoT, or the Internet of Threads, as I prefer to call it, as a giant network of connected things, which includes people. You can see from this diagram here, a lot of these sensors are out there now. The smart lighting, you'll see intelligent shopping, smart roads, traffic monitoring, weather monitoring. You'll see even golf courses or water quality. All these sensors are out there now. But when we look at commercial buildings, I think when we're talking about smart buildings, let's have a look at the building space. So when we look at commercial buildings in today's day and age, what technologies can we find? Obviously, video conference rooms, video conferencing, integrated audio systems. We see integrated monitoring systems, so facility monitoring, electrical, lighting, fire, CCTV, building automation systems, BMSs, we see them all over the networks. We also see parking control, telling you how many parking spots are available inside your car parks. Building information display and awareness systems, we see that. We also see access control, you see that in all buildings these days, some form of access control. Media facades, the big TV screens. You'll see smart lighting, LED lighting, emotional lighting. You also have media walls, so there's a wall there showing you TV. Augmented reality systems, we see that in retail, where you just stand in front of a screen and try on the clothes without actually trying on. Smart office has been around for quite some time. And we also see gardening systems, so environmental systems, automated water management. Now, as I was researching, I came across this paper and it had an interesting paragraph which I'd like to read out. It said, the built environment affects our well-being and this in turn influences our effectiveness in the workplace. Poor environments contribute to absenteeism and to people not working as well as they might. This is an enormous cost to the nation. High quality environmental design is an investment. As occupants are healthier, staff retention rates are higher, productivity is higher, and sustainability ideals are more likely to be met. Workplaces reflect the culture of companies and are places that are not just functionally convenient, but give the occupant a wholesome experience in terms of body and spirit, which is pretty accurate. People like to go to the office and they spend, in some cases, more time at the office than they do at home. And now what would happen if that same building suffered a cyber attack? What would happen if a person was injured or a person's life was at stake due to a cyber attack? And it has happened. In September of this year, a patient died in a German hospital due to a ransomware attack on that hospital. Now, this is, they say, the first known case of somebody dying from a cyber attack. But this attack on the German hospital, they failed to stop the attack, and that patient died because they couldn't provide that level of care to the patient. So who would be responsible? Who would be held liable? Will you be liable? In a smart building, all points of entry and all IoT devices are potential cyber attack vectors. Every single one. And that includes security systems and devices. Every single one of these IoT devices, every single one of these systems is a potential vector for a cyber attack. Now, we've all heard of the terms hardware, software, malware, spyware, adware, ransomware, etc., etc. But you've actually heard of the term siegeware. Siegeware is the concept of holding a building for ransom by leveraging its reliance upon software. There's that many attacks on buildings, we actually now have a dedicated term for breaking and hacking into buildings. To put it another way, siegeware is a code-enabled ability to make credible extortion demand based on digitally impaired building functionality. Now, if you think it hasn't happened before, trust me, it has. And here's some articles I can tell you. Lockout. The Austrian hotel that was hacked 4 times because they never learned the first 3 times. Well, that's comforting. Hackers make $300 tool that can open almost any hotel electronic lock. Hackers break into schools' CCTV system and stream footage of pupils live on the internet. Smart building complexity is creating dangerous new hacking opportunities. The dark side of physical access control systems. Kids hack dad's facial recognition lock in the easiest way possible. Yes, facial recognition is well on its own, and in most cases, a very high quality photo will unlock it. And facial recognition has a big flaw and it can't differentiate between twins. So if you've got a twin, forget facial recognition. Thousands of hacked CCTV devices used in distributed denial of service attacks. Hackers are hijacking smart building access systems to launch DDoS attacks. So when we talk about cybersecurity, you've got three aspects: people, processes, and technology. A lot of people tend to look at technology. I can tell you now technology is probably about 10% of the picture, if that. Processes, yeah, I'll give you 10 to 20%. People, 70 to 80. If you cannot, and what I prefer to call, and what I like to call, secure the human, that's always going to be your weakest link in any environment. You can see here, I don't know if you see that image, it might be too small, but there are many places where a human can actually be attacked. And that could be at airports, or cafes, or hotels, connected to free Wi-Fi. Don't do that. Don't connect to free Wi-Fi. We're always sitting on free Wi-Fi, waiting to see what information we get on free Wi-Fi. From your supply chain and your partners as well. If we go back to 2013, and we look at the attack on Target, the retail store. It wasn't a direct attack on Target, no. They actually broke through their HVAC contract. Now, it raised the question of why is the HVAC contract got the credentials to their point of sale system? I have no idea. It's obviously putting their own orders to order parts with the HVAC maintenance or whatever from there. To this day, they're still suffering from that. Over 70 million customers were affected. 44 million credit cards were linked from Target. To this day, they've spent over $250 million on this problem, on this issue, trying to actually resolve it and remediate it and go through all these legal cases. So, securing the human is very, very key. Okay, so where do we begin? We can see all these threats. Where do we begin to try and become a little bit more secure? Well, first I'm going to tell you where not to be. And that is, do not put your username and password on a monitor and then have a TV documentary crew walk around your office and capture it.
Oh, yeah.
So as you can see, this is the London railway station. I believe it was Waterloo railway station in London. Their system passwords were exposed on the TV documentary, and as you can see, the password is password 3. I'm pretty sure after the documentary, it's now password 4. So, where do we begin? Well, let's look at cybersecurity hygiene, what I like to call the 5 pillars of cybersecurity hygiene. And as you can see, education and awareness, planning and preparation, detection and recovery, sharing and collaboration, and ethics and certification. 5 pillars. Basic, high-level cybersecurity hygiene. Let's break them down. Cybersecurity must form part of conversations in every organisation, from the lunchroom to the boardroom, from the janitor to the CEO. Every single person in your organisation needs to go through cybersecurity awareness training. If I'm going to attack a company, attack a building, I could attack the CEO, but I prefer to attack the janitor. You know why? Because that janitor's going to have a swipe card that's going to give me access to every single door in that building. Is that janitor going through security awareness training? Or they just have contract? And if you look at any compliance framework that you see out there, whether it be NIST, ISO, PCI, CIS, the Australian Information Security Manual, they've all got a control in there that you must complete a form of security awareness training for all your staff in order to become compliant. Securing the human, goes back to securing the human. Make sure you are doing security awareness training for all your staff. A cybersecurity incident isn't an if, but a when. And to that end, preparation is essential. Are you prepared for when you will get attacked? Not if you get attacked. Are you prepared for when? And you prepared. Well, information security management systems. Have you got all these policies in place? Your best practice policies. Are you performing constant IT auditing on your environments? Do you have dedicated staff responsible for cybersecurity operations? Now, one thing I hear a lot when I do consulting engagements, I hear, oh, yeah, IT is looking after cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is not an IT issue. It is a business issue. Don't leave it to the IT department, because I can tell you now, if you suffered a penalty from Europe's GDPR, for example, the minimum penalty there is 10 million euros. Is that coming out of your IT budget? I think so. That's not coming out of your IT budget. When a breach happens, the quicker it is detected and responded to, the greater the chance of minimizing loss, be it financial, reputation, or otherwise. A lot of people try to put a price on how much it's going to cost if we were attacked. What about reputation? You can't put a price on reputational damage. Now, how do we detect and how do we recover from an incident like a cyber attack? Well, are you monitoring your environment? Are you monitoring your networks? Are you capturing the logs on your networks? Are you seeing what is actually occurring on the network, or are you just blind? Do you have security information and event management infrastructure? Do you have user and entity behavioral analytics? Remember, security human. Insider threats are more common than an external threat from an attacker. A disgruntled employee has a higher chance of actually attacking you from the inside than somebody from the outside. Do you have an incident response plan and policy? I know some companies, yeah, have an incident response. But when I analyse the policy, there's no mention of a cyber attack in the response. How are you responding to an incident on a cyber attack? Disaster recovery, business continuity. Do you actually have contacts with law enforcement, digital forensic organisations? Have them on speed dial, or actually introduce yourself or meet digital forensics organisations in case you want to run a forensic investigation on an attack. Now, one of my favourite sayings is it takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it. If you think about that, you'll do things that are different. And that's from Warren Buffett. It's quite important. Reputation is everything these days. And reputational damage is very, very difficult to recover. Collaboration is essential to mitigating current and future risks. If you see something on your environment, speak up. Share it with other organisations in your industry or your sector. You know, there are what we call National Council of Information Sharing and Analysis Centres, or ISACs. There are plenty of ISACs that are for different sectors, whether it be the automotive sector or the retail sector or the surface transportation sector and other sectors. There's plenty of them. Become a member of these ISACs because you will get alerted on a potential attack that is occurring somewhere else in your sector. You'll be aware of it. And that all feeds into the intelligence needed to be able to protect your organisation. Now, going back on the scene infrastructure that I mentioned earlier, threat intelligence feeds should already be coming through. So you should not only be monitoring what's on your environment and capturing all the logs that are in the environment and correlating those and seeing if there's something occurring in the network, but also having threat intelligence feed into this to be able to correlate indicators of compromise or certain other indicators of an attack occurring with what the industry knows and what the world knows from a threat intelligence perspective. And last but not least, ethics and certification. The difference between a white hat, which is a good guy, and a black hat, a bad guy, is mindset. That's all it is. It's the same person. It's not two different people. It's the same person. It's just their mindset. All cybersecurity professionals in your organisation should be members of organisations bound by codes of ethics. That could be the Australian Computer Society or the Australian Information Security Association or many others. There's many other associations out there that have codes of ethics. And that helps set the mindset of the cybersecurity professionals within your organisation. Protecting a smart building is the same as protecting any network or computing environment. There is no difference. There's nothing special that you need to do to protect a smart building. The same way you're protecting your IT environment, it's pretty much the same way to protect your OT, your operational technology, in your smart building. And to do that properly, you need to look at what we call a defense in depth. So multiple layers of defense. As you see here, we look at device security, and application security, data security, network security, physical security, perimeter security. All different types of security, but they all work together. They all need to be there working together to be able to provide a good level of security on your smart building. Now, I'm not going to tell you to be 100% safe. No such thing. You will never ever be 100% safe. Anybody who tells you so is completely incorrect. But you can get to a decent level of security, and that works well with your risk management, your risk appetite, your risk tolerance. Now, if we look at some other guides on how to protect a smart building, well, this is from the US Industrial Control Systems Cyber Emergency Response Team, where they show you here how to improve industrial control system cybersecurity defense in depth strategies. So as I mentioned before about defense in depth, having multiple layers of defense, and you can see here where they've got obviously level 5 is the internet, and then your corporate servers, and then your demilitarized zones. And you can also see that the sensors that are around the buildings are completely segmented. Network segmentation is absolutely critical. Having virtual networks inside your larger network to be able to segment all these sensors away from the rest of your environment. So is it really that bad? You know, I get that question often. Is it really that bad out there, or are you guys just trying to scare us? Well, let's have a look. CCTV cameras exposed directly to the internet. There's a whole heap of them out there. You can easily find them. You can see that looks like somebody's kitchen. You want to spy on somebody there. You can see that. And car parks, and we capture parking lots. And that, it took me 10 seconds to find all these cameras. There are many search engines where you can actually look to see exposed devices or exposed smart buildings. There's more cameras. You know, we can spend here all day having little cameras, and you can actually see them, and all these cameras sit live. So you actually be able to connect to that camera right there and just watch it and see what's going on. Exposed building management systems. Why are building management systems still connected to the internet directly? You can see it, automated already. Unsecured building management system. And that same system has also got remote desktop open to the internet. So however they're managing it, you can see from that remote desktop there's a user account there called Logo. And that's exposed directly to you. That and Windows 7, that'll probably take a couple of minutes. It won't take it long. You go and make changes to your building management system that's directly exposed to the internet. Exposed BMS infrastructure. You know, I had a quick look a couple of days ago. Worldwide, just under 200,000 instances of a BMS or some sort of smart building protocol exposed to the internet. Now, I was looking at these ports. They're the common ones for smart buildings. 102, 707, 502 is a white bus. Couple of ISO 41, you see BACnet, 47808, Ethernet, SCADA. All these protocols that are always used in smart buildings. Almost 200,000 results. Numbers quick search. In Australia and New Zealand, just shy of 4,000. In Australia, just shy of 4,000 instances. So, to summarise, smart building technology provides many opportunities to grab all sorts of data, to control your smart building, but it also provides many threats. And this is the thing that we need to balance. Comes down to risk management, but also comes down to, do I really need that information? And if I need that information, how am I grabbing that securely? Am I grabbing that securely? Can unauthorized people see that information? If so, how do I stop it? Understand what is on your network. Perform continuous automated inventory scans and reviews. If you don't know what's on your network, how are you going to protect it? If you are not watching or being alerted to somebody connecting something to your environment, how are you going to protect it? There are plenty of technologies out there, plenty of processes out there on how to pick up an unauthorized device on the environment. Don't plug unknown USBs into your PC. I do that attack all the time. It's a social engineering tactic called baiting. Everybody falls for a USB key on the floor that's labeled payroll. Everybody wants to know how much people are getting paid. This person getting paid more than me? Let's find out. Well, drop a USB on the floor that says payroll, guarantee someone's bound to pick it up and plug it into their workstation. USBs are very dangerous. Be careful. If you've never seen a particular person on site before, question them. Don't hesitate. Who are you? Show me your ID. Security is everybody's responsibility, not just the security guard. Because I know so many buildings where you can just break through and security just sitting there and number one. You haven't seen someone before on that site and they look suspicious. Question. And as I said, if it looks suspicious, most likely is. Trust your gut. Gut instinct usually works when it comes to security. Always use multi-factor authentication on all accounts. Always use it. Almost every single social media platform and corporate cloud environment application has got a form of multi-factor. And for those who don't know what multi-factor is, well, it's three factors. Something you know, which is a password or a passphrase or a PIN. Something you have, such as a smart card or a one-time password or a token, a key fob. And something you are, biometrics, such as fingerprint, facial recognition, earlobes, yes, they can now identify you from your earlobe. Supposedly, it's actually more unique than your fingerprint. Who knows? But there are two other factors that are less common, and that's time and location. Depending on the environment and the level of security, you can also use time, so you only have to log into the system within a certain time period. Or a location factor, where you need to be within what they call a GFX, geographical fence, to be able to log into this environment. So as long as you're using at least two of these factors, you are now using multi-factor authentication. Now beware of the trap where it says, yeah, I've got two passwords. No, that's not multi-factor, that is still single factor. Because you are still using two of some things you know. You haven't actually changed the type of factor. Be wary of any links in emails. Time and time again, we bring this up, and yet people still click on a link in an email. If you are not sure where that link is going to go, don't click on it. Move your mouse over this link and hover over it. Don't click on it, just hover over it. It'll always show you where that link is going to go. You've got a little tooltip pop up, it'll show you where this link is going to go. That looks suspicious, don't click on it, delete the email. You know, when Australia Post came on TV talking about their delivery schedules, less than 48 hours, getting flooded with emails from Australia Post, unable to deliver your package. Click here to reschedule delivery. And if you follow the links, if we analyse these emails, there's links and links. Click here to pay your custom fee. Be wary of what you are clicking on in emails. Use passphrases instead of passwords. Now this is a push by the industry, it has been for a number of years now. Stop using passwords, use a phrase. So instead of using a complex 8 to 10 character password that's up and down and special characters, use a long phrase that has spaces and 20, 25 characters. I went to the beach today. Something as simple as that. It's a phrase you can remember, but it's long. The longer the password, the harder it is for them to break in what we call a brute force attack. And one of my favourite tips that I love to give out is treat passwords like your underwear. Change them often, keep them off your desk, and never share them with anyone. And on that note, I'll open the floor to questions.
Mic up here.
Is there any mic on the tree
When you refer to cloud at
Yeah.
the start, my understanding is there's different levels of security with cloud solutions. Is that correct?
There is, but you've got to be aware of that. There's a misconception where putting things in the cloud and the cloud provider's going to keep it secure for. Doesn't work that way. Frankly, they don't care about your security. They'll give you the features, but not many people know those features actually exist, and they don't turn them on. We see a lot of instances where, for example, Amazon, AWS, an exposed S3 button is what they call it. We see so many attacks on data being leaked and personal information being leaked from it because they haven't actually secured it. There are plenty of security features out there. However, there is that misconception where, well, it's in the cloud. They're not secure. We're not doing that. No, they won't. There are different levels of, or different types of cloud. Yes, there's software as a service, there's infrastructure as a service, there's platform as a service. Look at the security features between them, each one of them. It's what we call a shared responsibility with the cloud providers. And that's what we need to understand. What's their responsibility and what's our responsibility? Yep. Thank you.
I'm working on the Australia-wide project at the moment. The infrastructure will come from a commercial organisation, and what you showed us is very interesting. Is there any chance of getting a copy of that presentation?
This one is here, this slide's
Excellent. That's good, because there was so much information there.
This is only scraping the surface.
Thank you. One of the biggest challenges that I'm looking at is how to secure that it's not going to be in the cloud, but it's going to be a network organization. And one of the challenges I have is how to be able to apply the technology you're talking about in cyber to be able to ensure that we can reduce the amount of hacking that can take place. I mean, taking into consideration all the points that you've raised.
Sure. What you need to look at in your design is what the attack surface is. That's what we call it, the attack surface. So have a look at your design. Where are the entry points? Where are the exit points for data? Where's data flowing? What type of data is flowing? I'm not sure of the project. Is it classified? Is it unclassified? There's different security levels. If we start talking about classified information with government projects, then it's a different ballgame altogether. If it's an unclassified project, well, you look at best practices and you look at industry frameworks. And I mentioned some of the frameworks before, but depending on the sector that the market that the project is in, they could have a specific framework that is specifically designed for that sector. So, for example, in America, they've got NERC, which is the North American Electric Reliability Corporation. But that standard is specific for electric utilities in the United States. Now, is that going to be secure enough for that market sector? I can tell you no, because I've seen it. And I've seen much more secure best practices out there. So you've got to look at a balance. Don't look at just the one framework. Understand what the attack surface is, and then by analysing the attack surface, and you understand it from, one thing I like to tell people is think like an attacker. If you can think like an attacker, you can protect yourself to an extent. But if you understand how an attacker is going to break through, then you go, well, the attacker is most likely going to come through this point. What technologies, what processes do I need to put into play here to try and minimise the risk on that point? I'm happy to take that question offline and discuss the project with you. That's no problem. And give you some more tips specific to the actual project.
People tend to think that an air-gapped network system is secure. When I was in defence, one of the things we were looking at, though, was hacking through the power lines.
Yes.
Is that still a major problem for it? And what can you do about it?
It all comes down to risk management. Now, you mentioned air gap, and it's quite funny. I mean, I see a lot of companies that I've audited. Yeah, it's air gap. How's it air gap? Oh, it's a firewall. That's not air gap. If I can't walk through it, it's not air gap. So firstly, let them get the air gap terminology correct to make sure it's physically isolated from the rest of the environment. Now, hacking over power lines, you can, and you can actually just go down to Jayco or JB Hi-Fi and pick up an adapter that converts your power line circuit to send data over it as well. And a lot of people do that in residential premises because they don't want to run cables. So, well, hang on, the power's already run, it's the same circuit, I'll just run data on that. You can do that. Now, it all comes down to, it's the same concept as protecting an Ethernet. or protecting the fiber network. Where are the entry points? Where's the exit point to this to the power network? And what's it going to? Is it going to breach some control that's connected to the corporate networks? You've got to look at the wider design. Now, can you attack the power? Can you attack the HVAC? I mean, they've broken into buildings by breaching the HVAC system. Now, we're breaching air conditioning systems. We're breaching building energy systems. So any form of medium, yes, you can actually breach it. But you've also got to look at what the risk is. Like I said, you're never going to be 100% secure. And if we understand what the risk is and where the entry points are, where the exit points are, then we can start to work at a reasonable level of security. But again, with the air gap, it goes back to making sure that it is properly physically segmented. Now, can air gap networks be broken? Of course. We look at the Stuxnet, the worry about attacking the Iranian nuclear plant. That was a physically isolated environment, but one of their employees picked up a USB on the floor. Goes back to the basics. USB, plug it in, there you go, the worm's inside your environment. So there's multiple concepts that we need to take into consideration on every topic.
Okay, I'm not sure, Matt looks in the other part to see if anyone else has got any questions. It doesn't seem that we have any at this moment. So, all right.
Shane, any questions from the floor?
I've asked no questions from the online community.
No questions.
Okay, well, on that note, I'd like to thank Ray. Ray has a very practical, not just a theoretical understanding, and he's reinforced the point that we all sort of know, that you can have hardware, firmware, software, but the wetware is the weakest link in the chain. And it's like the old joke, what's the most dangerous part of a car? The nut behind the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can multiply with staff security, education and awareness, obviously that's usually having a security aware workforce as a force multiplier for your technological and other procedural measures. And with the continuing convergence and overlap of the physical and cyber world, we have to make sure all of those issues are addressed, or we won't have integrated asset protection, especially since most organisations are almost totally IT dependent these days.
Mm-hmm.
So on that note, I would like to thank Ray here again for his excellent contribution. That's just a small foreshadowing of the huge amount of cybersecurity knowledge, to recite my line from last year, the huge amount of knowledge crammed into your craggy, swollen bonds. And by way of appreciation, please accept this certificate from the chapter for your excellent contribution, Ray.
Thank you very much.